The Demons Amongst Us, Part 2. He'd arrived home. Bewilderment overtook his brain. Richard sat down and took a few deep breaths. "I need a drink," he said, realizing a bottle of red wine was in the cabinet next to the TV. He pulled the cork off and poured himself a glass. Richard turned the television on, as the silence was becoming unbearable. On the screen, several monsters appeared, as they ran about a field, trying to retrieve items, which were hidden. Amongst them were humans, playing the same game. "The bastards are everywhere," he said. Richard switched the TV off. His eyes felt heavy. Through all the excitement, he'd forgotten about his heart attack, and how the doctor had told him to take it easy. No work for at least 3 weeks. Since being home, too many weird things had occurred. This couldn't be doing him any good. He needed some much-needed sleep. It was late. He walked up the stairs, rubbing his eyes. When Richard got into the bedroom, he took his clothes off and headed to the bed. For the first time since the heart attack, he didn't have a single nightmare. The only dream he had was when he was with his wife, on holiday, and this made him smile. "I love you, Samantha," he said to her. Her beautiful face then faded. Richard awoke the next morning, and it all seemed like a bad dream. He laughed to himself, thinking none of this could have really happened. It was too insane, even for him. He saw something through the bedroom window and his blood ran cold. Shit. It wasn't a dream. The postman made his way up the drive. Terry was his name, and the moment he saw Richard, he waved. Inside of his mouth were small, sharp teeth. His face was unrecognizable as he looked like one of those things. The post fell through the door with a bang. "I need a drink," he said. He stuck on some clothes, then made his way down the stairs, knowing a strong coffee would do the trick. While Richard sipped the drink, he pondered on what to do with his day. How many of these monsters were out there? He needed to know. Later, he would ring his wife. Hopefully, she'd have forgiven him by now. He loved her so much. At this moment, Richard needed her support more than ever. "Please, darling Samantha. I can't live without you." He thought back to the demons, and fear ran through him. The next few days were going to be a struggle. He wasn't looking forward to it, one bit. He observed many creatures in the center of London. Some wore suits, others were dressed in fleeces while they spoke on mobile phones. He went into several shops, and some of the staff had the same grotesque faces. This was becoming unbearable. When Richard got home late afternoon, he needed something to eat, as his stomach was making awful noises. Eating healthfully was the last thing on his mind, so he rang a takeaway and ordered the biggest pizza they had. There was a knock at the entrance, about 30 minutes later. Richard opened the door. In front of him was a kid with big red spots, which covered the lower part of his chin. He paid the money, wishing the teenager a pleasant evening, making his way back into the living room to stuff his face. The food was delicious. On the coffee table was a booklet that the hospital had given him about angina attacks. Using his foot, he pushed it off as it landed on the carpet. Richard belched loudly. It felt good. The time was 6:43 p.m. It was time to ring his wife and beg her for forgiveness. He knew she'd gone to her mum's house in the country, only a few miles from here. He walked to the phone. A feeling of dread ran through him. "Please forgive me," he thought. Richard dialed the number, waiting patiently. He left the house in a bad mood. His mother-in-law had answered the phone, saying that Samantha had made the right choice in leaving him. Ever since they'd been married, she'd always caused problems, like she was jealous of them. It made him so angry. Even though the doctor had warned him about drinking too much alcohol, tonight, he didn't care. Richard headed into a bar, not surprised to see the rancid monsters all around him, while they sat with his kind, chatting and laughing. He knocked back a shot of whiskey. His vision became blurry. "Are you okay?" asked the barman, who must have been in his late 60s. Richard was happy to see a human face, and replied, "After a couple more of these, I'll be fine." The man said, concerned, "You don't look too good, chap. Maybe you should head home." This made Richard angry, as he knew the vile creatures only sat a short distance away, and the barman was treating him like a freak. "Are you joking or something?" he yelled. The older man looked startled and replied, "I think you better leave these premises. If not, I'll ring the police." It was time to go. "Okay," Richard agreed. Richard headed to the entrance. He'd only had one drink, but it seemed a lot more. He opened the door, relieved he had made it in one piece. Suddenly, someone came through it, which caused Richard to lose his footing. Through sheer rage, he got back up, and pinned this person against the wall. He realized it was one of them. The demon snarled at him, saying, "I could kill you in a second. Do you want it?" He was petrified. With as much courage as he could muster, Richard answered, "I know who you are. And I'm not scared of you anymore." The creature, with its immense strength, pushed Richard to the ground. He cried out in pain. The monster grabbed his throat, and threw him against the nearest wall. The demon stared at him. Its tongue licked its pointy teeth with glee, saying, "Tomorrow you're going to wake up in a hospital, or even better than that, dead." Richard knew he'd screwed up. He thought back to his wife and kids. Without warning, he was released from the creature's clutches and fell clumsily to the path. Another voice was heard. Someone picked him up and ordered him to leave. A few seconds later, Richard found himself on an unfamiliar road, where he observed a bridge not too far away. He proceeded in that direction. He made his way onto the bridge. Several thoughts ran through his mind. His family hated him. He had nothing to live for. Richard looked fearfully at the water below. "I'm sorry, Samantha. I failed you in so many ways. I'll never see my beautiful children grow up. I feel like there isn't a way back." Richard closed his eyes. "Please, God. I saw something I shouldn't have seen. And this has destroyed me. It's lost me my family. My heart is broken. It's time to leave." His heart raced. He jumped. A hand grabbed his ankle. When he'd regained consciousness, someone stood over him. The first thing he said was, "Won't you monsters leave me alone?" The creature seemed sad and said in a slightly feminine tone, "Why do something so stupid?" Richard ached everywhere. He stood up with difficulty. "Yes, you're right. What I did was stupid. But you can't blame me, can you?" he answered. Suddenly, an awful pain covered his chest. He landed on the road. His breathing was erratic. Richard was petrified that he was going to die. He noticed the monster, rubbing its hands together. In between its palms, appeared a strange yellow glow. A moment later, everything went black. Richard awoke, remembering in flashes of what had happened. "Please, God. I've had enough. First my family, and now this." He opened his eyes, and realized he was in his bed. Sat on a chair, a meter from him, was the creature that had saved him. "Thank you for what you did," he said. Richard looked at the creature, and for the first time in ages, he didn't feel threatened, saying, "How come you aren't as aggressive as some of the others?" "I'm sorry, that was a silly thing to say." She giggled, replying, "I'm a female. Are you surprised?" He needed to ask her a question. "Why did you save me? What I did tonight was foolish. I feel so ashamed." He looked away from her, still not knowing what to make of them. "I'm so confused. But to me, you're an angel, for what you did." She said, "You're a good man, Richard." A single tear ran down her cheek. "How did you know where I lived?" he asked. "Sorry, I just need an answer, that's all." The demon understood. "I was told to follow you. To keep you safe. But I won't lie to you, Richard. There is a lot of my kind, who are angry with the way things are. At the moment, they don't know about you. Please, accept us. That's all I ask. Watch us, hang around with our kind. In time, you'll realize, we are the same as you." "Why am I the only person who can see you?" "It makes little sense," he asked. The creature stood up and put a hand on his chest. Your heart is all better. I healed you. Some of us have that ability. If we were so evil, why are you still here? Answer me that. He couldn't think of anything to say, and all he said was, "Thank you, for saving me." "That's all my pleasure, Richard." She proceeded to the door, then peered back, and said, "For the next few days, study us, follow us, even make friends with our kind. But don't tell them what you know, not at this moment, anyway. We are a vulnerable race. We don't like too many surprises. It was nice to meet you. I must go, but you'll be forever in my thoughts." Richard watched her as she left the room. The front door was heard closing. He was knackered. Within seconds, he was asleep. Richard woke up the next day in a new frame of mind. He wasn't sure if it was the conversation with the female demon, which had given him some comfort, or that he felt a lot better, mentally and physically. Even the slight ache in his chest had subsided. After eating a healthy breakfast, Richard got himself checked out at the local hospital. 3.5 hours later, he left the hospital shocked. His heart was good as new. Even the doctor inspecting him was baffled beyond belief. While he made his way out of the congested car park, he saw the creatures everywhere. Some held hands with their loved ones, while others walked down the street, listening to their CD players, without a care in the world. Richard, for the first time in ages, laughed. "I'm such an idiot. Hallelujah, to the biggest fool in the world," he shouted, raising his arms into the air. A creature gave him an odd look. "Drinking too early will not do you any favors, mate." Richard replied, "Maybe it's them blue pills I took earlier. The moment I take them, people look different." The creature looked at him suspiciously. "You're weird," was all it said. With that, it carried on down the road, carrying a bag of shopping, while grunting something under its breath. Late afternoon, he found himself in a quaint pub, ordering a beer. At the bar sat one of the demons. He decided to join it. Both chatted about politics and other random things. Richard was very surprised by how intelligent this thing was. Its name was Barry. After a while, he got up from the stool and shook Barry's clawed hand and said, a little tipsy, as he had had 3 pints, "It was very nice to meet you, mate." "Hope to see you again soon," it answered. Richard headed home to catch a nap. The sun shone. The temperature was agreeable. From somewhere deep inside, a slight light glimmered amongst the shadows. Life was worth living after all. And he couldn't have been happier. A car was observed coming up the drive. It was his family. He couldn't wait to see them. He saw 3 figures getting out of the vehicle, which was parked beside the pretty flower bed. While they made their way to the entrance, he heard Samantha's faint voice say, "Come on, children. Daddy's really looking forward to seeing you." Excited laughter erupted in front of the house. A key turning in the lock, and the door opened. 3 meters from him was Samantha and his beloved children. He cried, and getting up from the sofa, put his arms around them. "Thank you for forgiving me. I swear with all my heart, it'll never happen again," he said. "What I did was awful." Behind him, on the coffee table, stood a little box, which had been opened only 10 minutes ago. He'd taken the second pill, so things would get back to normal. He knew the truth. It was now time to get on with his life. With his beautiful family all around him, it was the perfect moment to do just that. The cancer had finally beaten him. He knew he had little time left. A faint noise was heard. He half opened his eyes. At the door stood someone. As they came towards him, he noticed something different. Now it all made sense. "It's you," he whispered. "My angel." Samantha sat down on a chair, a few inches from the bed. "There must be something the doctors can do." "I won't take it, Richard. You're the love of my life. We've been married for as long as I can remember. Please don't leave me," she begged, putting both hands together, like she was praying. He could barely speak, but doing the best he could, he answered, "You're my shining light, Samantha. A reason to carry on, but I have got little time left." He coughed up some blood. Samantha got a tissue out of her coat pocket and wiped the blood from his chin. A nervous look came over her face. "I've got a confession, Richard. I need to come clean." He laughed, then replied with difficulty, "So, who is it?" "What do you mean?" she asked, putting her hands on his chest, softly. He said, "Well, when you said you needed to confess something, that only means one thing." More blood ran from his mouth. She bent down and kissed him on the forehead, before saying, nervously, "I can't lie to you any longer, my dear Richard, who I've loved for as long as I can remember. And who I cherish, with all my heart." He peered up at her with a smile on his face. "Then tell." She brushed a hand through his hair, and said, while trembling, "It was me on the bridge that night. It was me who put you in your bed. I feel so ashamed for not telling you this earlier." Richard glanced up at Samantha. "I've always known. To me, you've always been beautiful." With as much strength as he could muster, he raised his head and kissed his wife tenderly on the lips for the last time. Within a few months, other people saw them, and a new age was dawning. The end.